then compel people until they become believers. So it is disrespectful to think ignorantly that it was not a wise decision to have people different and that people must be forced to have the same faith. Another example of mistrusting Allah is thinking that Allah misjudged in specifying the truth, as was mentioned in Surat Al-Hujurat, verse 190. Allah says, "Fight in the way of Allah against those who fight against you, begin not hostilities. Verily, Allah does not like the transgressors." So it is forbidden to think that Allah misjudged and forbade transgression because of lack of knowledge about the current facts, and that nowadays, if you are not a wolf, then you will be eaten by wolves, and you have to preempt your enemy before he attacks you. Another example of mistrusting Allah and His Messenger is thinking that preserving the sanctity of Muslim blood and the blood of innocent, peaceful non-Muslims that have treaties and are given covenant of safety is weakness, and is misjudgment of current matters, and to think the permissibility of killing others. There are other thoughts that some of them are considered to be clear disbelief, and that all and you, however, have fell into because they doubt the wisdom, justice, and the judgment of Allah. The reason for their thoughts is their misguided interpretation of the Quran and misapplying its rulings. So avoid these thoughts, brothers and sisters, and be careful to follow these desires, thinking that people that promote these ideas are supporters of Islam, while in actuality they are damaging Islam, as their ancestors did. Only the ones that obey Allah are the true supporters of Islam. Another ill thought that common people fall into is mistrusting Allah's distribution of sustenance and wealth, and doubting Allah's promise of rewarding good deeds and forgiving sins and turning sins into good deeds. These thoughts lead to envy and despair from the mercy of Allah. It was said that despair kills a person, while trust in Allah is a comfort for the hearts. Another type of forbidden suspicion is ill thoughts about the Prophet ﷺ by doubting that he has fulfilled his trust of delivering the message of Allah by neglecting to inform about avenues of virtue of the hereafter. These people think that they fulfill these shortcomings by their own sayings or actions. That is what these Khawarij think. So they believe that they are more pious than the Prophet ﷺ, and they complete his shortcomings and do what he was weak to perform. May Allah defeat him. Also, of the ill thoughts about the Prophet ﷺ is to misconstrue his sayings and interpret them on the worst meaning possible and misuse them. This is what Khawarij did, so they became thieves, killers, robbers, to justify every crime with a hadith. Their actions made people who denied the Sunnah to mockingly justify these actions by saying that they were following hadith. While both groups, deniers of the Sunnah and the Khawarij, are despicable liars. Dear brothers and sisters, since it is evident to us that suspicion is a fatal disease, that we need to look for a cure before it spreads. Islam has established remedies that will save us from these sins. So it prescribes good thoughts as a cure for these diseases. We start with good thinking about Allah, which is the foremost and best worship that serves a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Indeed, having good thoughts concerning Allah is from the perfection of worship of Allah." So if a person has good thoughts and trust in Allah and believe His promises of accepting good deeds, punishment, and rewards, and what He decided for His creation, then he will perform good deeds with confidence in Allah's promise, and will put all of his he does good deeds. And the hypocrite thinks bad about his Lord, so he commits sins. And the best of the good deeds that the believer performs is thinking good about his Lord and believing in his promises. And when he is dying, he is certain of Allah's promises, as was narrated on the authority of Jabir, that he heard the Prophet ﷺ say before his death, "None of you should die but hoping only good from Allah, the Exalted and Glorious." Scholars wonder why the teaching of the faith were to hope only good from Allah at the moment of death and not fear. Scholars answer that fear is used during one's life as a method to scare him from committing sins, which is beneficial during his life. But when death comes, the person will not commit sins anymore, so there is no further need for fear. Rather, it could have the effect of despair at that moment. So it is best to hope good at that point, because it is the best supply for a believer that is about to meet his Lord. That's why the companions of the Prophet ﷺ used to remind